Hello, everyone. And today we are going to be talking to Peggy in our Get Messy podcast. And she is just a natural cheerleader. And if you are wanting someone who's going to inspire you to reach for your sketchbook and explore colors and just have fun, then I would definitely say that Peggy is going to be the one to inspire you to do that. In our podcast today, we are going to be talking about hurdles. We're going to be talking about how we can overcome resistance and focusing on what your why is and how that is going to be able to move you forward in your creative practice. We also talk about things like your word of the year and why it's important that you learn how to repair your sewing machine. So let's get into it.
Gotta get messy and show the world you growing as an artist. And you're free to be yourself. You got a dream, you need to start it. Stick together. Get Messy says you're formally invited to a community where you can find people that spark the feel of excitement. Too many art supplies, not enough time. No, it's tougher, so you must find a way to feel some connection. We got a lot of people with the same kind, a great mind. We here for you, a platform so we can hear your views. Time's yours, forget chores. I know you bored of them same rules.
Thank you for joining me and for saying yes for the podcast.
Oh, I thank you for thinking of me. I am so excited to be here. This is my favorite topic. I could talk about it all day. I could talk to you all day. I adore you. So I'm thrilled to be here as well. Thank you so much.
The feelings mutual, completely mutual. I'm so excited to be able to just spend an hour listening to you, talking about your creative practice and all the things that you've been up to. So I think to get started, can I ask you to maybe introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah. So I am Peggy Dean. I founded the Pigeon Letters as an accident. It was just an Instagram account, and it was my biggest thing was being able to connect with other people and in a space where we're all learning and growing. And I would be lying to say that I'm not always learning. I love learning, in fact. So I think that the trend I've noticed amongst people who teach like myself is that we are constant learners, but we're also kind of oversharers. We love being able to overshare, but really being able to spread this thing that makes us so happy. And so I dabble just like a lot of creative people do. I love painting. I love drawing. I love Procreate. I love DIY, like you name it. I absolutely love art. And I think that we all kind of find a lane, if you will, some key elements that we love. For me, that came down to hand lettering, calligraphy, gouache, watercolor, and sketching, specifically embracing imperfections, which is my favorite thing to do. And being able to feel loose, still feel proud of your work, but it was a hot mess the whole entire time. I think you guys can relate to that. Just being able to be free in creativity. So I teach, like that's what I do. I think that was probably the best way I've described what I've done, I will say, because I get that question, right? And I'm like, oh, what do I do? I'm an author, educator, and artist. But truthfully, it's very holistic. So let's look at it like that, I think. So thank you.
It's amazing. And I think what I've really enjoyed is how authentically you can connect with people, right? Because it just seems as though maybe it comes back to that oversharing a bit, but it's just like you're so open and really inspiring and spontaneous in how you connect to your audience, connect to people that are doing your classes. And I really appreciate that because it makes you feel as though one can almost connect with you, even though it's just over a screen, right? Because a lot of times we're sort of doing things online. It's not really in person, but you come across so authentically that it's like we're in a room with you and just hanging out, which is absolutely fantastic. I don't know how you have managed to get that.
That's my favorite thing to hear always. I think that for me, it was a matter of, so I know everybody responds to growing up or social cues a little differently. And for me, it's always been kind of, how can I be a little, okay, this was no joke. Like my early 20s, late teens, it was, how can I be like never disappointed? How can I always, so I've always been a little extra, because I feel like if I'm a little extra and you reject me right now, I don't have the chance of you rejecting me when you find out that I'm quirky or whatever it is. I think that was a coping mechanism. But when I, as I've grown, I've been able to channel that in a way that's not so extra, but that's just like, I feel like confidence grows, right? Like the more that we are ourselves. So I think that that's kind of where that comes from. But really, truthfully, when we grow in business or in anything, it's harder and harder to stay in that place. And that was a challenge that I met in the last few years. And I actually tried the idea of kind of like removing things from my plate so that I could focus. And one of those things was being accessible, like as accessible as I was. I hate admitting this, but it was like, and I hated doing it. But then this year, my whole entire, like my word of the year is roots. Like roots, like let's remember. What? Really? What?
My word is rooted.
Shut up. Really?
Yes, that's amazing.
Okay, that is amazing. Okay, tell me about what? Tell me about what stemmed for you. I'll keep going, but I want to know what stemmed for you with rooted.
Okay, do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, so last year my word was expand, right? So I felt like it was really an outward motion.
Yeah.
And I felt as though I needed to be rooted, like more rooted in my connection, in my practice, rooted to my connections with my heritage and my family. And just like this idea of putting down your roots to nourish yourself and to be more grounded in everything that you're doing. That's kind of the way that I was looking at rooted, was to sort of be more established in everything that I do. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. How interesting and fun that this is a beautiful thing.
Okay, let's get back to your roots.
Well, I'm gonna sidetrack on roots for a minute, because what you just described is parallel to what we're talking about. And it's I had someone do my human design once, because I just love any sort of anything like that. But it was actually alongside all of this, like, let's see how we should expand, if you will, right? Or evolve. And you learn all of these things when it comes to trying to run a business when you're not a business person. And a lot of that is building a strong foundation. And like when I did my human design, she specifically said to me, Peggy, you are not a concrete foundation person. You are a tree. You have roots. And this was after I chose roots for my words. So I was like, this is crazy. So you have roots. Those roots expand underground. They will, some will poke out, but you're constantly moving. You're swaying. You're allowing yourself to sway with nature, with wind, with all of these things that happen. And you're also, there's so much that happens underground even, so just hearing this analogy, I'm such a visual person. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting permission to get out of this like box I've been trying to put myself in after all of this time. And so this year, it was just perfect, because this year, that's what I was trying to do, is all coming back to remember why you started. When I started, I was healing. I was finding new ways to cope with my biggest triggers, one of which happened to be rejection. And, I had a job situation, and anytime, like, little things like that, they just set us off in ways that we don't necessarily see. So the mindfulness around that was just, anyway, my start was like, okay, well, rather than act out and try to wreak chaos and havoc all over my own personal life so it can't hurt me, what can I do instead? Oh, well, I have these really cheap watercolors. that are I didn't know that at the time. I just like, oh, I have watercolors and this thing. Like, I'm just going to paint some blobs and see what happens. And after that night, I painted every day for an entire month. And what I started with and where it got to, I'm not saying my skills built, but the variation of the things that, like, how it evolved. Like, okay, I started painting blobs, and then I'm suddenly doing taxonomies of flowers with scientific classifications. Like, never knew I would even care about that. And I don't really, but I do think it's cool to have kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species on a picture. Just really flaunting my 5th grade science. Never mind. But that was kind of what my point was. Like, I don't like the feeling of not being able to connect with people. I don't like the feeling of them not being able to reach me and having this like hard rule in place. I don't like it. So I removed other things from my plate and came back to that because it was so important to me. Like, that is who I am at my core. And why would I for a second think that that's not the right choice? According to who? So for me, I've just been like, I mean, I just think there is a lot of strategy and planning and marketing that goes into being able to sustain, being able to do anything that we want to do for ourselves, for sure. But there's also, I wish if anyone is ever thinking about doing what they love as a job, as a career, I know that's not where we went, but I went there, to remember like what is most important to you and never waver on it. Don't ever even think to waver on it, no matter how much pressure you feel, because pressure will come. And it's just not like, why do something you love if you can't do something you love? I love connecting with people. I love showing up in a way that is like loud and cheerleading and making things accessible to people. This isn't something where you're trying to be some sort of like, maybe you're trying to be professional, and that's great. But a lot of us are not trying to be, I mean, if somebody wants to perfect, like there's other things besides workshops to get there. I like to have a bridge to be able to have an outlet that allows us to play, as do you. You know, you guys do the same thing. Like, we just want to be able to play and do something that fills our soul. And that's the point. And so there's a time and a place for everything. And if I can continue to show up in a way that, you know, I personally benefited from and wanting to relive that through other people, maybe, I don't know. But spread that passion and excitement, like, that's cool. I just went down a real big rabbit hole there, but I think it all comes together. But how I just love that your word is also.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. That is really cool. And the other thing that I'm thinking now is, if you remember what your why is, right? Like you were saying, so many things are going to come across your path that might sort of push you to maybe do something that you didn't want to do, or, you know, that you sort of feel forced to now move in a new direction, or whatever it might be. But if you keep that why in the forefront of your mind, I think it's going to help you to stay more authentic to your practice and to your creative voice, right? It's going to help you in not wavering and giving into peer pressure or whatever it might be, you know, business pressure.
Yeah. And the other interesting part about it is that at that point you have a focus, and, you know, when you don't, and you just do, or you sample things, or you try things that you think you should do, I'm air quoting should, I don't like to should, but, you know, it derails, and there isn't a focus. And when there isn't a focus, there's no way to succeed. Like, there isn't. So I think tree branches off of a main focus is great, but we need, right, roots.
Yep.
So when it's rooted in something you actually care about, that translates. It's the same thing I tell people, like with art, you know, if you're doing it in an explorative way, in a way that is bringing joy to the process, if there's meaning behind it, even, you know, or it's just allowing yourself to, you know, when someone else or when we ourselves see it again and reflect on it again, we get to relive a little bit of that experience, maybe in a different way, but it's in there. That energy is in there. I'm not a woo-woo person, but I do believe that
Yeah.
when we do something for the process, when we do something from our core why,
Mm.
the outcome is only a bonus, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's
Yeah.
cool. And if somebody
But
else,
sorry, I was going to say, I think that energy is in there too, though, right?
right?
Like the love and the feeling that you put into it, like it, you can see it in the work.
Yeah.
The energy is definitely in what you're doing too. So
Yeah.
if you've got a strong reason for doing it, I mean, even we painted socks, right? We painted
Right.
socks and they were fun. We loved doing it, but that feeling of spontaneity and just playing comes out in how you are doing your whatever it is, your sketch or your painting. Or so I think your reasons, whatever they might be, they are
Yeah.
reflected in what you're doing.
Yeah, I think so. It's a personal thing.
Mm.
And you know, I run these programs where I hear it's interesting because I like to challenge people to go outside their comfort zone of like, yes, we love painting flowers. I love painting flowers. We're not going to paint flowers for a while because I'm going to give you this prompt. You can only use these colors. You only have this amount of time. You have to use this medium because I want to make people uncomfortable. And my favorite thing to hear is like, wow, I never thought I would have explored this topic, but this actually unleashed this whole series for me. And I've completely shifted gears. Or not, I love this part, but I also hear, I wasn't feeling this. I felt a lot of resistance with this, but I forced myself. I don't like the outcome. And so you hear that sometimes. And that just tells me like, you didn't, like maybe you didn't allow yourself to really open up to it, which is fine. I get that some days we show up and we just don't want to be there, but we forced ourselves anyway. And to that, I applaud. But I do think that there's also something to say, like, when we truly do, it's not, yes, mindset for sure. But I'm not a silver lining person, but I'm a little bit of a silver lining person. And what I would say from that is when we don't like a piece, no matter if it came from our heads or if it was challenged to us, it's not a bad thing. We get to see and assess what we didn't like about it and then do it differently next time. How would we even know that? What we're doing is being able to determine our preferences and our creative choices moving forward. That's cool. There is no such thing as a bad piece that we create. We're just only being able to say like, okay, I can be certain this is not a medium I like, or I can be certain that I don't love this topic. However, it also, what doesn't carry over, so you learn how to manipulate, or you don't learn, or you're just like dabbling, like this doesn't make sense to me and I don't want to learn it. Fine. But there's something in using something tactile that will translate into something else. And then something will click one time. Oh, wait, watercolor did that one thing when I wonder if that would work with this medium I do love, So I just think like, you don't know it yet, but this was a win. You don't know it yet, but just you wait. Like I took, when I started doing this full time and teaching full time, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to college because why not? Like I have time. So I went to one, what do you call it? Quarter, semester, trimester, what are those things? And I decided I was going to take all the art classes, and I took drawing. And you guys, I think it's great that a lot of people love drawing, like legit drawing, where we're shading and we're finding highlights and shadows and realism. I think that's great. It's not my thing, but it was my thing. I learned so much about value, like shade and value, like I learned so much about that and looking at it differently. Like highlights don't just go on one side sometimes.
Mm.
Sometimes they can transfer over here, but they do only go on one side one time if that's what I want them to do, because that's a creative choice, because art is subjective. Like, let's make what we want to make. Having that little knowledge of something I don't have any interest in is so powerful if I want it to be. No, always, because if I'm omitting something that I know is right, quote unquote, then then that's a creative decision I made. So it's just knowledge is power. So anytime that you create something that you're just like, bleh, it's not. Like, you learned something from that, and you might not know it for 2 more years, but you did. And if nothing else, it's honing our skills. You know, however, I saw a meme today that said something about how sad is it that we turned dance and art into skills, like something that has to be skill based, when it is a human, like naturally ingrained human thing that we do or did, you know, back in the day, whenever that was. And I was just like, yeah, that's so interesting, because it's true. Like, yes, there is there are fundamental quote rules to being able to achieve XYZ that someone created at some point. And that's really cool. But when we study art, and if study art just means to look at it a lot and see what we like or don't like, some of the best artists in the world don't have that quote unquote skill. And if they do, they sure are making a creative choice to ignore it. So that I think is also really powerful to remember when we're creating. I have no idea how I got here with what we were talking about, but you know what I mean? I think that is also something to remember. Like, some of the best artists in the world's time, what rules, you know, what are we trying to achieve, and why are we trying to achieve it? This is for us. We do art for us. That's why we started. So it's something to ponder.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. Okay. You were saying you love like getting people out of their comfort zones. How do you do that for yourself? Like, do you find in your practice, like, okay, I'm sort of feeling boxed in or whatever it is, and I need to sort of do something different. So how do you challenge yourself in your practice?
Yeah. So I actually I noticed this before. I noticed this too late. I noticed this when I hit a burnout space. So basically it's like, when I feel just uninspired or bored. I don't want to say bored, but like almost kind of, you know, it's burnout, but sometimes I just feel disinterested. I guess that's the best way to put it. But I feel this drive of like, oh, I really need to be creative. I have to be like, I can't not be making something because I just feel stir crazy. I will completely switch gears. So I do a lot of 2D art all the time. But for me, I have found that when I go into a 3D space, it changes things for me. So for 2 years, I joined a clay studio and I made ceramics, and that was amazing. And now, like, actually it was 4 years, I think. But I was just playing. It was for me only. And then I had way too many ceramics. So it did sort of make its way into business because I couldn't stop making paint palettes. I was having so much fun. And then those all sold out so fast. And I was like, okay. And then my team was like, okay, we need more palettes. We need this. And I'm like, oh, no. Oh, no. That is something that I do for me. If I have extras, I will do a release, but that is something it has to be for me. If I turn that into business, I will not love it. I mean, that's not necessarily true, but where I'm at now, like I need this to be a sacred space. If this is someone who's not doing it for business, however, I think that even just shifting gears temporarily is great. I mean, if I sat down and did some embroidery, and that was really fun because it was something tactile for me, that's what my brain needed. Or, you know, I taught myself, I went to a workshop once, did rug tufting. with like the whole rug tufting machine. And I, for a while, sat on it. Like, I really want to make another one, but those workshops are not cheap. And the supplies are like they're under the cost of one workshop. So what did I do? I built my own rug tufting frame because the ones that I was seeing, I know it's so dumb, but the ones that I was seeing for sale were so like dinky, like they'd fall apart just looking at them. So I made a big one because I wanted to be able to like work on multiple things at once or make a big thing. And I went out and bought every yarn there is, which is just silly because I knew it was a phase, but it's fine. And I've been, I tufted some rugs, like, oh, even this just sitting here. I had a scrap area and I was like, well, that's not going to waste. So this became like,
oh, wow.
It's on my desk. And if you're listening to this and don't see it, then I'm sorry. But it is just a bunch of random colors thrown together with different types of mark making with yarn, and it was just something to get my mind in a different creative zone. So there's plenty of outlets, which is a beautiful thing on how we can make things like DIY or fiber art or clay or whatever. So for me, that's what it was. Some people might want to, shift into something. I just say completely change. Like, don't force yourself to show up to do the thing that you love to do because you're going to make yourself not love to do it. Maybe not. But sometimes it's like, I need to take a break to have a reset because my brain is latching onto this thing that is lying to me. I thought I would never want to return to watercolor. I was just so like, I just don't want to. And then it was around the time where that's what the demand was. Like, I was working with a publisher and it's like, we want to do watercolor. Like, oh my gosh, so I had to put myself in that place. Like, I don't want to say, oh my gosh, to that. I want to enjoy it. So for times like those, I give myself intentional, separate spaces to play with something that has absolutely nothing to do with the thing that I know that deep down I do love. I don't know. That's the way that I combat it. I know that the things
that's really good.
I know the things I took on were more commitment based, like, okay, you're going to go to a studio. Okay, you're going to learn how to do the thing. But it doesn't take much to look up basic strokes of embroidery and buy a couple embroidery flosses and just like get physical with something that you can feel on your hands, even if it's not actually creating something. Like, I've done weird abstract hoops where I'm just creating different textures and I loved the way it turned out. So you just never know. And that's what opened my door to liking abstract art, because I never really understood it before. And now I love it because I approached it in a completely different medium at first. And so I thought that was cool. Like, what an open door. And then it made it so that when my mom passed, it, like, you just never know what's going to happen. My mom was sick for my whole life and she was getting worse, but even if she had MS and even if it's terrible, right? But even if you know something is coming, nothing can prepare you. And so I didn't even dabble in abstract until that happened. And so what it did was it opened a door for when I needed it. And that's the thing where it's like, if we allow ourselves to just explore things and not understand something or not like it, or we don't know, or it's just like maybe not our thing. Who knows? That's going to be waiting for us if and when we need it. And for 6 months, I had never been so freely creative. And then it's so interesting because I kind of stopped doing it. And when I realized and looked back, I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't been doing that for months. I've also been feeling better. It's not like you ever get over something, but I healed in the way that I needed to during that time. And that was like true magic for my soul. And I thought that was also really cool to reflect on. So my big, long personal overshare answer for you, my friend.
I was thinking that when you said like really commitment based, I think it's also good though, because it forces you to get out and actually do the thing, right? It's so easy to say, I'm going to
Right, right.
Let's say I'm gonna start knitting, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can go and buy the knitting needles, you can buy the wool, but when you actually get to start the project is another story. Whereas if you actually have a class or a workshop to get out to,
True.
like you've committed and you've got to get out the house and you've got to get the thing done. So it might actually be good to find the class or the workshop or the thing that's going to get you out of your comfort zone, out of your house, out of your studio, so that you can actually go and do something.
This is a good, I'm glad you say it, because it's also kind of unlocking this thing in my head where, like, that's a commitment, showing up for something. But do you know what else is? If something is in a budget and it costs money, but it's interesting, like, it doesn't matter if it's $29 or $2.90, like it might, right, with budget. But if you can find something that's a commitment that also costs something, even if it's only $29 and it's like you get however much you get, maybe it's a workshop, maybe it's a series of 4, whatever the case may be, whatever works in someone's budget is the point. Even $5 feels like, oh, I have to show up for that. Cause that's a contract. I paid money to be there. I am obligated to be there. Isn't that interesting? Like even spending $5, what are you guys in? What's the currency?
We do Rand, but so basically 20 Rand is $1.
Yeah. So, okay. So if you did 100 Rand, right? It's like, okay, I got to show up for this thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's like, okay, yeah, I'm here, I'm locked in, and who knows what that's going to unlock. So if you can invest in something that separates yourself from the normal, because how many free things do we sign up for and never show up for ever?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. It's like, well, that's there if I want it, and at least I'm registered. But I can tell you, I can count how many times I've actually shown up to something that was like, oh, it's there. That's like, oh, am I going to pull up the YouTube video and actually watch the thing? This reminds me actually of Pinterest. Pinterest is in my thoughts, the best example of, I want to be creative today. I'm going to go on Pinterest and I'm going to find the project that I want to do. And then 4 hours goes by and you're just sorting these like hypothetical scenarios into folders and then reorganizing the folders. And before you know it, it's like, well, at least I have them for next time. Like, you didn't do anything. Yes. And so what can force us to do things when we identify what our boundaries are, or not boundaries, make boundaries for ourselves by identifying the hurdles or the resistance or what's restricting us from doing the thing. Like, why are we not doing it? What's the real reason we're not doing it? Sometimes it's just behavioral or like habitual, where it's like, well, let's not look at Pinterest, or think about the thing you pinned one time before you even open it. And you're only looking for that, like, set limits so that we don't get down a rabbit hole to where there's any chance that we won't do the thing. Because how great do we feel when we just break the ice? When we break the ice, the flow comes, the flow state comes. It doesn't take long.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
We've got some great advice going here.
No, I mean, I think it's just, I'm so passionate about it. I don't even know. I also think I'm just I will own that I'm opinionated and passionate. My answers are not the answers for everyone, and I will own that wholeheartedly. I just get so excited, and I know what has worked for me, and I feel so confident in that it will work for someone. So if I can even just make the slightest positive shift for someone else, I'm just like, yes, like, that's right. And then open a door that's just a different thought process. Because how much of our behaviors come down to mindset? Like, it truly is a huge amount. And being able to pivot after we identify these hurdles. Like, so we're mindful first, and then we have a chosen response to what we have gathered, if you will.
Mm.
I didn't used to have these tools. But it's like mindfulness was really hard for me. I'm a very impulsive person. I act before I think, like all day long. So it took me a long time to be able to be aware of my thoughts. Going back to human design, for me, I feel things in my body before I can process them. So I've just been a lot more aware of what my body's telling me. If it's tense, if it's excited, if my eyes start welling because, it's like, well, why is that? Because I just love this. I'm so excited. This feels hopeful. This feels inspirational, motivational, fill in any motivational quote you want. Or it's like, why am I tense about this? Like, this is something I should be excited about. Oh, I need to remove these few factors from this because this doesn't feel right. So it just depends on, who you are and how you feel. But I think our bodies tell us a lot. So yeah, I think that, again, I'm passionate. My answers, my advice, if you will, won't be for everyone. And I love that. I love that for who it's not for, because you are able to decipher and feel like, oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Own that, So that's what I think. I know.
And so my question is like learning to read what your body's telling you, right? Learning to like be present enough to notice the things and to respond to them. Was that a process for you?
Yes.
Did it come naturally? Like, have you had to consciously work at listening to your body? What does that look like?
Yeah, 100%. That was not a natural thing at all. And that started off completely irrelevant. I think it's all connected and it's holistic. But that came down to coping mechanisms at first, where it was like, okay, I'm feeling this way. What the first thing that I started recognizing are, do I have external vulnerabilities right now? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I cold? Do I have to pee? Because how much are we ignoring that we have to pee? I mean, just get up and pee. Like, that's just me. It's like you get so focused and it's like, I am not feeling this. I don't know what. Well, first recognition for me is, what are my external vulnerabilities? I can't think about this. And I know it's simple, but I can't think about this until I get up and I go to the bathroom, and maybe I can't think about this until I get some protein, I need to make myself some lentils real quick. And if I want to bring that back in here, I will. But how much changes in 5 minutes when we take care of our external vulnerabilities? So that's the first one for me. And a lot of it can be a lot deeper, but I think that when we even just starting to recognize stuff like that will automatically trigger these thoughts of like, wait, let's just pause for a second. What's really going on here? This feels like a mental battle, but is there something else to this? Okay, maybe not. So what's the mental battle about? It opens a different frame of thinking about it. And then it's like, oh, I don't like, maybe I don't like this pigment. I was teaching a live workshop the last weekend, and I was mixing colors and choosing one of my absolute favorite watercolors, hematite violet, which is a very my brain gradiating, like it has gradation to it, and it's beautiful. But mixing it with what I was mixing it with was just not doing what I wanted, and it was just like, all of a sudden I felt in my body this kind of panic, like, oh my gosh, this is not doing what I wanted to do. I'm teaching this right now. These people are going to think I'm amateurs and I have no idea what I'm talking about. So instead I owned it and I said, now I kind of problem solved, and this is what I would do to myself. But in that moment I was live. I had 200 people in this room and I was just like, okay, what's really going on, Peggy? And I said, I don't know why this isn't working. I've never mixed these two colors together. I was problem solving out loud. I've never mixed these two colors together. So, this could be that there's this gradation. Yeah. My brain is not, I don't even know if that's the right word right now, which is so weird, but it has this great graininess, like separation to it. And it's beautiful on its own. It's beautiful with other colors. But sometimes, even if pigments are coming from the same brand, no pigment's created equally. And so some of it feels a little bit like oil and water trying to get along. And it's just like, what? So realizing that, I'm like, okay, so this actually could be a creative choice, right? But it's not what I'm trying to do. So let's pivot and let's take this pigment I do want and try something else and then see. So I got to about the same tones. And then I put them side by side. And I said, now you can see here, this is the result we'll get from doing it with this pigment that I have never mixed with before, which is fine. It's not bad. This is what I was intending to do. And this makes me a lot happier. And suddenly I felt so much relief because I didn't just get there, but I kind of saved face because I was panicking. Because I could have easily ended that workshop not trying to troubleshoot, speeding through that part, just hoping that that was, quote, good enough. Now I know that I talked a lot about skill earlier and that it's subjective, but I do think that there's an extent, like I want to teach people skills, right? Because why not? We want to learn the rules to break the rules. But I could have easily left that thinking like, I have failed. I don't know how to do watercolor anymore. I don't know. I am not a real artist. Why? Like, I am a fraud. Like, I could have had all those thoughts, but instead it was just a simple, what's the actual problem here? What is this? I could have said this wasn't a good painting day for me, or, and sometimes it's just the paper you're using. You don't know if you don't allow yourself to think a little further than the feeling we initially get. So that to me is a good example. Luckily, when you're live, it's kind of like you got to make a decision right now. And my decision was to troubleshoot with everybody. And I think that actually helped them too. Because I know it did, because it's unlocking this like, oh, I never realized that happens for me sometimes and not other times. This is probably my pigment. So, it's also being permissive to ourselves to explore and identify, get to know our pigments, get to know our brushes, get to know our paper, know what we like moving forward. I will use hematite violet all day long. I'm not going to mix it with many colors because it doesn't do what I want it to do. It's going to break it up in a way that doesn't necessarily make sense for me. That's not for everyone. It's for me and what I wanted. So I think that when we're feeling like any resistance to anything, just ask, like, pause. Do I have external vulnerabilities? Is there something else going on here? Assess. It's like a quick checklist in our minds when it comes to art, because the more we know, right? When I first started using Tombows markers, any felt tip marker, they were running out of ink pretty fast. They were shredding. They were just getting kind of like soft at the tips and just not flowing as well. Well, who knew? It's the paper that we're using and not the marker. The paper was shredding the tips because it has microfibers that are just like little shards, like teeth, and I had no idea. And how long? It was like 2 years before I realized that. I had already been teaching by then. And so then I reflected, I was like, oh my gosh, but I would say printer paper works great. So technically that's not untrue, because laser jet paper is amazing for markers. Inkjet printer paper is not. Luckily, I never specified. So I was like, okay, I got to specify. It's just those little things that maybe there's something else to it. And that could be a quick Google search. Why is this happening? This is what I'm using. Or asking, like, we have a beautiful community. If we throw that into a forum somewhere, like, someone's going to show up and ask questions like, well, what did you use? What paper are you using? Like, what, let's get to it. Like, we love this stuff. I wanted to learn how to sew this year because I have so many interests. People are like, Peggy, is there anything you don't do? I'm like, well, I don't do anything amazing, but I do a lot of things, but I don't sew. It's always been the answer. Like, I don't sew. And I forced myself. I was like, this is the year. I'm going to learn how to sew, and I can straight stitch all day long. And that might be the only thing I know how to do, but here's why. I wanted a beautiful old machine. I wanted something that, I just love them. I love the way they look. I wanted a beautiful old machine, and I knew they were going to be old. So I was like, okay, how do I make this work well? Like, what do I need to do? Well, I could pay for a tune-up, or since I don't have a lot of desire to sew, but I'm forcing myself, I'm going to do a tune-up. And I watched this, like, I don't know why this is not a course. There's a woman on YouTube who has a series that is like a total of 3 hours of all these videos doing a full restoration on a Singer featherweight.
Oh,
And
wow.
I took like 2 weeks of just diving into this, and I just loved every second. And I was like, I repair sewing machines now. I know this thing inside and out. I know why things work. I know where a problem might occur. And so it was almost like fully learning this tool before I sew. And now I can easily YouTube how to tailor pants, and all I need to know is where to detach the seam and then put it back together. Because what I really needed to know for myself was how this thing even works. Why in the past have I bought sewing machines that jam up so quickly? Like, well, I didn't know that it needed to do a full rotation. Like, it's something so simple. I don't even know if that's what it's called, but when the needle goes down and comes back up all the way, I didn't know something so simple. They don't tell you that in the manual. I say that as a joke because they absolutely do. And one of the classes that I took online for sewing, it was just like, read your manual, you guys. First thing I can tell you is read your manual. It's all there. So that was funny, but that was another thing when I stepped away. First part of the year, January, February, I did the bare minimum that I, quote, needed to do. And everything else was exploratory, whatever. To where I just played and allowed myself to learn new things. And like the sewing machine's been in this cabinet behind me for the rest of the time. I haven't done anything with it. Like the whole reason I did it was because I was so tired of getting bad alterations. And I'm like, well, I'm going to learn this thing myself because I'm going to do everything myself. We all have that thought sometimes. It's not most healthy, but it's fine. But I haven't altered them yet. Like that wasn't the point of why I really wanted to learn. It was more of just like I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to do this. I researched for months on the one that I wanted to buy. I researched for, so I think it was just that was commitment. That was commitment. Speaking of commitment and making ourselves, going back to our roots, and mine was curiosity. Mine was learn. I love to learn. This is another example of how I don't know how I got here.
But I think it's good to challenge yourself in different ways, though, right? It sort of forces you to use a different part of your brain, and they all bleed back into each other, right? Comes back to that holistic kind of thing, like everything has a connection. But taking yourself completely out of your comfort zone and just like exploring different things, I think it's so important for just general aspects of your life. Like, I mean, I'm sure after that you feel a lot more confident.
Yeah,
definitely. Like, it sounds crazy to say like my confidence grew because I did a whole overhaul on a sewing machine, but that is like the reality of it, right? Is just you succeeded and you've got your machine to show that you could do it, and one day you'll fix the pants.
What I did do was I was like, oh, I'm going to make stuff all the time. And I went and I grabbed a bunch of like tossed items. Basically, we have a thrift store that's like thrift. Like there are just bins and bins of just random, and they just weigh them and then you pay according to weight. So I grabbed a bunch of like random fabrics, like some were garments, like jackets where I knew there was a big area on the back, and they end up costing like $1. So it's kind of incredible because you can get really nice fabric if you just take something apart. But I kept making bags. My first project was a zipper bag, and I'm not kidding when I say like 30 bags.
Oh, wow.
And I chose, of course, fabric that was hard to work with. I chose zippers that were really clunky because I wanted them to be really thick. And none of them are great, but I had so much fun doing it. And the pants will come when they come. It'll be time. The thing that I liked so much about it, though, was I didn't have very many jams because I restored that thing. So I made that thing work like butter. Like, it is nice. But the thing is, when it did, I knew exactly where the problem was. And that was cool. The confidence you're talking about is just like, oh, I have no fear of this. Like, I don't have to,
Mm.
I know exactly what the problem is. I can get into this. I can disassemble this one thing and fix this and put it back. And then it's not broken, as it turns out. Like, who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew it's not broken? Because I'm just like, oh yeah, sewing machines break if you look at them. But no, they actually don't. They work for in ways. I mean, some, yeah. Anyway, but you're right. It'll come when it comes, but the confidence builds in its own right, in its own way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. I have one more question, one more curiosity. And that is that if I think about you, like you in color, right? I've said this to you before.
Yes.
Like Peggy in color, they go side by side. You can't separate the two. So I just want to know, like, has your relationship with color always been something that's come naturally to you, or did you have to work at like figuring out which colors you love together? Is it something that you consciously are looking for all the time? How does that work for you?
This is great that you asked it in the way you did, because I didn't have this answer until you asked in the way that you did. I have always loved color. I've always felt drawn to certain colors for certain reasons. And there's psychology to color, like the basics of them. Like everyone can probably agree that, well, first of all, before I even get there, some colors are tied to our culture or our experiences. I recently, I don't know what it was, but there was a comment thread in my community of, when it came down to color, it's like, well, I see here that you've listed it and everyone else is talking about how yellow is energizing and joyful and happy. But for me, I just remember my mom putting me in this really scratchy yellow dress and I hated it. And I was like, I like that you're calling that out, because there's also a high stimulation to the color yellow. So if you already had this bad experience, and like, if you had a bad experience and you remember that, like, it doesn't matter what color it is, that makes sense that you would have this like hesitation to it. So big picture, yes, everything, like, I feel like numbers kind of have colors, you know, like I was talking to Alina on my team the other day, and I was like, well, wait a minute. I just stopped the important thing we were talking about. I was like, wait a minute. What color is 3? And she told me what she thought. And it's like, we all haven't, like, what color for you is 3?
I don't know. I immediately think of like a light purple, almost like a lavender kind of color.
Yeah. Everyone's going to have an answer.
What color is 3 for you?
I don't know. I'm really, I've kind of been tainted with colors and numbers because of all of the things that have come up, specifically this book called Enneatype. It's just a really simple breakdown of Enneagrams, but it's very color coded. And so I can only see the colors that are assigned based on that, which is not the case. It's just like it happened to be there. So my bias is there. Like 7, I don't know that I would always see that being yellow before, but Enneagram 7, I just love personality tests so much, but it happens to be yellow because of the personality style associated with 7. So I can't answer that for real for how I would really feel. But I do think everything kind of has an association and there's a reason behind it. But like purple is the most creative color. It sparks this creativity and calm around it. And that probably pulls from blue, which is a very calming color. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that psychologically tests have been proven to say that green is actually the most calming color? It's not blue. Blue is a very close second, but green has this calming presence from probably nature. That's a very refreshing reset of being like having just this fresh relaxation. So I thought that was really interesting to see too. It's like a rejuvenation. Pink, some shades of pink are some of the most neutralizing. That's why they have locker rooms, prisons, drunk tanks in pink. In like what is it? There's like I can't remember the name. It's similar to Potter's pink. It's not Potter's pink. But there's certain pinks that are like neutralizing. They just kind of bring you down and you're just at baseline, which is also interesting to think about. But For those who don't know, I ask people, instead of how are you, I ask, what color are you feeling today? Because I think it makes people think about things in a little bit different way. And I also have found that a lot of times the answer people give is not the color they're feeling that at that moment, it's the color they need right then. So,
Okay.
right? It's like you feel all of this, maybe you feel red, but your answer is opposite on the color wheel, which you didn't even realize. And it's like, well, sage green, not green, sage green. And that's like, it kind of is like, oh, you are craving calm. You are craving being grounded and feeling, it's, I think that's cool. I just love color. I'm a nerd. When it when it comes to art with color, I did not feel the connection that I feel now to it. And it was because I didn't necessarily know how to pair colors the way I wanted to. And I think the color wheel is a really great tool for that when we try things according to the rules. So, as an example, not even the rules, just according to like what the terms. So like, let's only create with primary colors. That's going to make people light up some. That's going to make some people feel like, oh, this feels very like nursery, or, not nursery, but nursery could be softer, but like, adolescent time, because it's just bold. Toy colors sometimes, especially toys from the 70s, 80s. So there's associations to that aren't necessarily, analogous color palettes. When I started doing art with analogous color palettes, what that means, for those who don't know, if you look at a color wheel, it's colors that are next to each other. So red with orange with pink. And then, you can add tints or shades to that. So maybe salmon with bubblegum pink and poppy red, like things like that, where we just shifted a little bit. It doesn't have to be boom, 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 so bright. That was when I started feeling like I loved my work. For me, some people, complementary colors. So opposite on the color wheel, when you pair violet and purple together, or excuse me, violet and yellow together, or orange and blue together. Like, I love orange and blue together. I think it's great. If you work on an analogous palette where you have 3 colors next to each other and then skip to complementary as that like grounding accent. So if I work with orange and salmon and like a yellowish, and then I pop royal blue in, those types of things, working with limited color palettes, I immediately overnight felt like my art was 10 times better than it was. And it was just based on color. And because I have so many things that I love doing, I had not at the time seen any common thread with anything I made. There just wasn't one. And now I see a common thread across the board because I have these colors that I am intentional with when I create. So that is why I like the question, because it took practicing that to understand like, oh, I don't need to paint florals according to nature. I don't need to have these green stems with this lavender, like purple flower with these. I don't need to. I can make my grass beige or my stems this like burnt orange, like it just being able to challenge ourselves by going in and saying, limited color palette time, let's play. And the more we do that, the more we identify, okay, this wasn't my jam, but this one really is. And then it just kind of evolves from there. I had a workshop the other day where I mixed Pyrrole Scarlet with green gold. That those colors are like poppy red with like a really, really bright, almost yellow chartreuse. And that's like a bright yellowy green, essentially. And it was mostly red mixed with a little bit of that yellow green. And the color was just like this beautiful autumn, rich, bronzy orange. It was so pretty. So just knowing playing with color allows us to get there. So that was how my relationship with color really, really came alive. I personally am on the other side, like the minority of choices. When there's like, well, do you guys prefer the blue or purple versus the orange and yellow? I'm always going to choose warm colors, but I am an energetic person. I need, like, I had in my office, I had my wall painted this nice deep dark green for like a year and a half. And that's what I needed at the time. And then when I got out of that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need the opposite so much. So it's just like blast all these colors on the wall. They're all warm tones. Even the violets that I chose have an undertone of warm, which doesn't necessarily go because it's like, well, let's have some color contrast in here. But I was like, nope, this is what I need right now. And I like it so much more. So that'll change maybe tomorrow. Who knows? Impulsive time, whatever. But surrounding ourselves, creating with, you fill in the blank, the colors that are, that light us up, that energize us, or that calm us, you know, whatever it is that we need, that I think is how we decide what we love. And I have probably unnecessarily like 10 different greens in my paint palette because I love greens. Like I don't want to mix to get there. I want to be able to dive into one at random without even seeing what it is and just have a different tone. Like that's a loose, effortless, let's dive in. But I haven't for a while. I've just really been orange and reds but you just never know. Like I think that color is also representative, I can't speak today, of where we are in our lives at that time, you know, coming back to that. So anyway, that's my long and short, not short.
I think on that note, thank you so much for chatting with us and for just sharing. It's been so much fun to hear all of your thoughts and hear about your process and your journey. And it's just so inspiring for people that are either just starting or are feeling as though they need something a little different, right? Because we get to a stage where we feel as though it's time for a change. And like, what does that look like? And how do I do that?
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I love this topic. I love when I get to connect with people who like get it, you know, like we get it. We are, this creative community is its own kind of chosen family. Like I told you in the beginning, when I first met you, I felt like I'd known you for years. And I find that happens and it's a really unique experience. So thank you for having me. I am honored. I would do this every day.